Good evening, family. You've tuned in again to the Journey 2020. We bring you tonight another, what we feel is a special broadcast. And in starting out, just to introduce myself, I'm Dr. John Robertson. I'm a psychologist in private practice here in Orlando, and very pleased and proud to have a co-host and a partner in crime, good crime, by the way. This gentleman is the pro with the audio video. How'd you like that, Charles? I actually rhymed that one.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah. Pro with audio video.
There you go. Yeah. Mr. Charles Morris. Charles.
Oh, all right. Now that's this week. I didn't have to bring my dictionary, right?
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
All right. I'm Charles Morris. Welcome to the Journey 2020. Happy to be with you on this Friday. I'm actually, I always look forward when it's raining. I really enjoy the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I look around and I see the lakes drying up, and I always think about now, as soon as it finishes, it's time to go out and catch some bass.
I was about to say.
Right.
Okay.
But, I had been on you probably for about a month now on a show that I wanted to do. And then you said, I think day before yesterday, let's do the show. But then when I was reading about our guest today, I think it's going to take away from her and the wonderful things she's been doing, because I was telling you before the show, the program that I was part of with Sherry Grace, Mothers of Incarcerated Sons. And with Mothers of Incarcerated Sons was very active for years. And we used to go into Coleman Prison, and Warden Carlisle at the time, he actually retired. And so I got some stories about that experience for a period of 10 years. Over those 10 years, it was like I was going to Coleman Prison like every other month. And I actually have some video footage that I never used. I put it together, but we can talk more, about that. Okay. So I would give it back to you so you can actually introduce our guest. And by the way, how are you doing?
Oh, okay. As they say, I'm doing well, which is a nice segue, because before I introduce our guest, I just want to do a little announcements, and two things coming up that we announced last week, but I want to remind people, and this is very important. And Charles, you and I have been part of this for some years, and that's the Black Men's Health Summit. That's going to be tomorrow here in Orlando. Actually, it's shifted location this year. It's going to be in Altamont Springs.
Right.
And for those of you listening who may not know, it's maybe about 4 or 5 miles outside of Orlando. Actually borders on Orlando. But the Black Men's Health Summit is the premier health screening event of the Central Florida area. And quite frankly, and Charles, you could correct, because you've been with the Health Summit almost from the beginning. I think it's one of the only events of its kind literally in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know of other places that do something like this. And to those of you who are listening and who may not know what I'm talking about, the Black Men's Health Summit is a free health screening event that is put on by Dr. Angela Adams, who is a local pharmacist. And this is the, let me see if I can get it. Is it the 17th? 18th annual event. And this event has...
Whoa!
Wow! I think you all heard that thunder, okay? And as my grandmother would say, is God trying to get our attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, if you see us jump again, it's probably going to be another clap of thunder. But, and I think that the thunder highlighted, you know, the Black Men's Health Summit. But I just wanted to announce that. If those of you who are thinking about it, it's going to be from 9 to 12 o'clock tomorrow at the Hilton in Altamont Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Do come. Everything is free. There's screenings for diabetes, glaucoma, prostate cancer, hypertension, anything that you can think that you might have or might get, there's a screening for it. Mm-hmm. And we will be there representing the Multicultural Addictions Network, and we will be doing the mental health screenings. And we've done that now for, this is going to be our fifth year in doing that. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to get that that out there. And the other thing I also want to announce real quick, and before I introduce our guest, is that this is an early save the date. We're going to be having the 13th, I believe, Recovery Walk and Run, 13th for the Orange County Drug Free Coalition. It is going to be the 8th for the Multicultural Addictions Network. And we will be doing a 3K walk and a 5K run in Barnett Park. It's 7:30 to 12 o'clock, September 19th. So all of those of you who are talking about you want to get in shape, this is a good event to get in shape. Right. And if you, I'd say, can't walk or you can't run, you know, you can cheer. So there's space for everyone, from cradle, from crib to cradle to a wheelchair. There's a space for you at this Recovery Walk and Run, and again, it's free. So September 19th, come on out. We'll look for you there. And if you see me, let me know that you heard it on the Journey 2020. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now, since we've done the announcement like they do in church, I want to get to our main event, and that is hearing from my good friend, colleague, and an extraordinary woman, Dr. Ada Crosby. And with Dr. Ada, she likes to say that she just got out of prison, okay? And I'll let her explain that a little bit later. But she is taking on the monumental task of working while she was in the prison system with women who were often with men mostly in prison.
Yeah.
But I know you had done some work outside.
That was my research.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And with women. Mm-hmm. So
yes.
I want you to definitely talk about that.
Sure.
So with Dr. Ada's work, she's developed a unique perspective on relationships between men and women as prison has intervened and as individuals are incarcerated. So Dr. Ada, firstly, welcome to the Journey 2020.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here.
Okay.
And I'm really happy that you think so well of me.
Well, and not only do we think well of you, I'm just glad that you saw fit, that it wasn't a waste of your time to be here on the Journey 2020.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I was looking forward to it all day, praying, okay, God, you're on. I want to say something before we do get to the new relationships that I believe was clearly delineated from the study that I did. Speaking back about the Men's Health Summit, many years ago, my former boss found out he had prostate cancer. And I told him about the Men's Health Summit. And I'm thinking this has probably been at least, this is the 18th? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just estimating this is probably 12 Men Health Summits ago. And
Wow.
he caught it early.
Mhm.
As we all know, when you catch something early, you have a better chance of a positive outcome, meaning that
Exactly.
you live.
Exactly.
And he did. And he had the surgery and he had the treatment. And I recommended it to him. And whenever I talk to him, because I did say he's my former boss, he remembers that. So I
That-
just had to say that. Yeah.
That is
Yes.
good. So
That's a true story.
So you've been saving lives, for a long time.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have, in more ways than one.
That's
Yeah.
And I wanted to not neglect to talk about
Sure.
what you're doing now, because you have not slowed down. And I just happen to know that you're currently working with Dr. Veronica White in V. White and Associates, and doing some spectacular work that you've wanted to do, and that Dr. White, has promoted and supported. And we're going to let you talk about that also a little bit later on.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. I think I better first of all explain the fact that I just got out of prison. And
You don't have to
yeah.
report to your PO.
No. And I also will tell you I've been really good. So I don't have a need to be monitored, no ankle bracelet. I don't have to report in. I worked for Florida Department of Corrections at Central Florida Reception Center for 24 years and 5 months.
Okay.
And Florida Reception Center, which remains Orlando's best kept secret, except for those who have visited inmates, remains Central Florida best kept secret. Male offenders that come from the county jail. We're Florida's largest prison system, right here in our backyard in Orlando, Florida. In Orlando, Florida area,
Wow.
yeah. So besides Disney World and Universal and SeaWorld, there's another big money maker. And I'll probably say more about that later.
Okay.
But I worked there as an intake specialist or mental health professional most of my mental health career, which spans about 30 years. And I got involved soon into my career with HIV/AIDS. I did several programs inside the walls of a prison related to HIV prevention. This is many years ago. This is early 90s when HIV was coming on the scene as basically a killer, a death sentence, if you will. And I took on the task of creating prevention programs, and I did support groups. And I also got involved with a project through the Association of Black Psychologists. In fact, Dr. White and I both worked as consultants. And that provided me with the background information that I needed to do what I did in the prison, because working with the National AIDS Assistant Project helped me learn more about how HIV/AIDS was impacting African Americans. And at that time, it was really our epidemic. It was truly a black disease. And unfortunately, it continues to be. Yes, it does, right.
Because we're still, I think, 6 times more likely overall
Yes.
to get HIV/AIDS.
Yes.
And also, and I don't want to skip forward too much, but
Yeah.
I remember the statistic that African American women are something like 20 to 21 times more likely to become infected than their white counterparts.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
Wow.
Yeah. African American females still carry the scourge of the disease, even though the rates of infection have gone down, thank goodness, but we still carry the bulk of that, unfortunately. And it seems to occur more often during the childbearing years, which is really troublesome to me. And part of the reason why I decided to do the research study that I did, because I felt personally that HIV is a disease that really shouldn't happen, especially to women of color, period, because it's basically 100% preventable. The majority of the transmission comes from heterosexual relationships.
Contact,
Yes,
yeah.
right. Absolutely.
Even though back in the day it was thought of as a gay disease,
Yes. Yes.
and in parts of our community it's still thought that women, black heterosexual men and women don't have to worry about it because it's a gay thing.
That's
Okay.
right. But that certainly has changed significantly, and it really has. I'm sorry to even report that there has been an upsurge in HIV infections among our African American gay males. And this is partly due to drugs and the fact that you probably was going to mention next, which is the fact that there's a lot of treatment out there. And contracting HIV is no longer a death sentence, especially if you get the treatment that you need earlier on. I have to stress that point earlier on, because if we do not access the healthcare system, which we as African Americans have not done traditionally, we may end up with AIDS. Okay, and AIDS actually is after you get the infection, and usually it comes on with the onset of an opportunistic disease, which can kill you. Yes.
So again, it's not just, well, if I get HIV, all I've got to do is to take a few pills and I'm good to go. That the loss of life is still, a significant part of it. Well, just back up a little bit,
yes,
and
please.
as we were talking about you just getting out of prison, how do you see that? What I think of that triangle of incarceration, women, and the relationship, that they have with their men. Even if the man is incarcerated or the woman is incarcerated, how do you see that nexus, especially with as far as it relates to their health?
I'm really glad you asked that question, which possibly is the second impetus for the reason why I did my research study. Men in prison will have sex with each other. We don't need to cover it up. Most prisons traditionally do not like to say that because it becomes a health threat. But it's true. It's really true. Of the 9 study participants that I had, 2 of the 9 could track their HIV transmission to a male that they had a sexual relationship that had spent time in prison. That is true.
Well, Dr. Ada, you're getting me to thinking about another statistic, and that is that at some point in life, 1/3 of black men will be involved in the jail or prison or incarcerated in some way. And as you said, if sex is going on male to male, then that means that there is a higher likelihood of that young man or that young brother than contracting HIV.
That's true.
And most, I would presume, are not what we would categorize as gay. So so it seems then there is an added vulnerability of African American women, because the brother is not going to announce, well, listen, I've been to prison, and
I had sex
I've
with a
engaged
man
in-"
while I was there.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And I'm not trying to paint a picture that is something accepted in prison. It's hidden. It is. I've been involved in a few stories that other inmates have shared with me that, of course, I had to report, because I'm obligated as a state employee to report anything that may be a threat of some sort of harm. I remember a story very clearly that this person told me he was a watch out guy. He had to watch so that officers that may come by to look that may disturb the operation. Unfortunately, some people go to prison and they don't have family members to send them money. So they may actually prostitute themselves to not so much get money, because there's a cashless system in the prison system.
Right.
But they can get coffee and chips and all sorts of things from the canteen.
Okay.
Yeah, which suffices, is just like having money.
Right. So that's the
yes,
economy.
right.
Yeah, okay.
So I had to report this,
Mm-hmm.
and this particular person was very he was very sorry that he had done that, because it had already happened, but there was still a likelihood it was going on. So that's why he reported it to me, and of course I had to do an incident report. Sometimes as women, we don't ask questions. And what I know now is we have to discuss sexual relationships. And we have to discuss this prior to the happening.
Right.
Okay. And we don't usually do it. We may think that it's a given in a relationship, but it should be your choice. And with most women, and I'll just say women in general, we kind of go with the flow of the relationship. And with African American women, as you said, it kind of adds to the vulnerability if we're going to date black men. And if we don't know their criminal history and if they've served time in prison. Now, I don't want to scare anybody to think, oh boy, that guy I dated 5 years ago, oh, he spent 3 years in prison. No, I'm not saying that about each and every person. I'm saying that it is happening, and the discussion needs to happen before you come to the conclusion that this person may have engaged in risky behavior. Doesn't necessarily have to take place in prison. It could happen somewhere else. I know you all remember the story about the gentleman who wrote the book about the down low.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that, huh?
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, it still could happen. The discussion should be frank and honest, and it really should be open. And if you're in a relationship, I hope you're old enough that you can ask these sort of questions. And when you ask these questions, nobody has any kind of truth serum of anything to give anybody to make sure they being answered correctly. I would not venture to take somebody's word for it. So I would like to just say the new wave of dating has changed, and it changed a lot longer than before I started my study. It's just nobody cared to talk about it too much, because we're still very hush-hush, and there's still a very strong stigma attached to HIV/AIDS, especially in the African American community. And along with that, we remain homophobic for the most part, which doesn't help us either. But I just like to say the conversation needs to be frank and honest and open. And if you're unsure, then don't engage in sex. Don't engage in activity that you may risk yourself of contracting something. Just not HIV, but there are about 29 other STDs, sexually transmitted diseases or infections, if you will, that you can contract. And I always like to add herpes, because herpes is worthy of a conversation in its own right, because it doesn't necessarily require sex, skin-to-skin contact with an infected person. And there's no cure for herpes, and the outbreaks are really painful, and your quality of life is not great when you have an outbreak from herpes. And recently in the New England Journal of Medicine, and recently, I always say recently, that probably should suffice to say it's been within the last year, that they're running out of options to give you to combat that, the options medically. Because your standard of care, of course, is to take antibiotics, but the options are running out.
Oh, that's right, because many of the individuals are becoming, or the virus is becoming resistant to treatment by these antibiotics.
Right.
Exactly.
And along with that would be chlamydia. Along with that would be your gonorrhea. Yes. and so you really have to be careful out there, because there's a lot more that you can contract for that you didn't ask for in a relationship. So it's best to be aware and have these discussions, and yes, get tested.
Okay.
Absolutely, get tested.
That makes a lot
That's
of sense
right.
to me.
That's right.
One of the things, Dr. Ada, that as you mentioned a little earlier, that women in relationships like to go along with the flow.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, right?
And I think that connected with I believe a question that Charles had posed. You know.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little different. I think it was because of my bad clinical influence that Charles called it narcissism. Okay, but I think that in many ways, what you were just describing, and of going along with the flow has something to do with it, has a connection, and I'd like to have you talk about that a bit.
Okay. I want to talk about the fact that there's a perception that there are not a lot of dateable African American males, first of all, and that's a fear. You often hear people say that my selection of dating African American males is limited because most of them are gay, in prison, or dead, or perhaps married. There's some truth to that. However, I think what needs to be said about this is perceptions sometimes aren't always true. But if that's what you base your understanding on, then you may find yourself in a relationship with a man who also has relationship with other women. And that can be okay with you. And I encountered that in my study again. And I like to say 9 HIV positive women may not seem like a big study group, but they had a lot to say because the data that I collected was a lot. It was a lot.
I'm going to ask you to back up a little bit because the point that you made about the women dating a man who has other women and that it is all right. Now, being of the mature generation, as they said back in my day, that would have been, well, unheard of in terms of being openly admitted. Now, it was probably going on. Not probably, I'm sure it was going on.
Yes, but, absolutely.
But it was not, but what seems to have changed is that sense of being public about it being, all right.
Yes.
And I think that feeds into something. Charles, I'm going to let you jump in here
because
let him
that
jump
was
in
one because he's smiling.
Yes, exactly.
Now because that's just opened up so much. I don't even know where to start.
I know.
That's just because I've been single all of my life, and so I got a zillion stories, and I don't even know where to start. Honestly, I
there you go, family.
No, but I'm saying I don't know where to start because the older I get, the more I start to realize the dysfunction.
Yes.
Okay, and I have lots of female friends that I have conversation with. I'm either calling Dr. Robinson on the phone or I'm calling my pastor, right? Right, because I'm having him on the phone and we're talking about relationships, we're talking about life. And there's so much that there's a disconnect. And you're not looking for something perfect, but when you my conversations that I try to have is that you really don't know who I am. And you have this image that you're trying to put on me.
Yes.
But you also don't take your time to get to know me. But you have these expectations Now we're getting off on something different, but this is one of my favorite sayings, and that is, I say that if Christ came to you and said, "Hello, my angel, I'm here to bless you, and I want to be here to help you. How can I help you?" And she's going to tell him what she wants and the kind of man she wants, and he's going to say, "I'm God Almighty, and I can't create him." You know? So,
Yes, right.
but the other part of that too is that because there's so much dysfunction, she doesn't understand her power within herself in the relationship.
Exactly.
And so because she
Yes.
doesn't understand her power, and I
Yes.
say you can get anything you want from a man.
Yes.
But you got to understand your position and who he is and who you are. And so there's the other part of that too is what I say is that what God gave me to give to you is confusing now, because now I got a dude in my face. I know how to handle a dude. I know how to handle a guy, because now you're coming across to me like a dude, like a guy. I know the fisticuff thing. I know how to go, crazy on you.
Yeah.
But there's a dude now. It's confusing to me because what I'm looking at the personality of the aggression, the anger, the words, and all the
Yes.
things in your personality and the disrespect and all of this
Yeah.
right here. And now I'm confused because I'm like, who is this in front of me?
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, I know how to combat this if there's a guy, but now in reality, it's not a guy, but it's a guy. So whether or not I have the maturity or the understanding of what I'm dealing with, you have given away your power, because you are what comes after the storm. You calm everything. You balance everything. I'm the crazy one. Now you just as crazy as me.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
you try to get them
Yeah.
to understand that.
Right.
Because what I try to convey, and I say it's hard. I say God put a lot of weight on your shoulders, way more weight than mine, because you have the patience. And I try to convey. I say this is what women don't understand. God gave you steps 6, 7, 8, and 9. I can only go up to 6. After
Yeah.
6,
Yeah.
I'm throwing my hands up.
Yeah. You're in
And
control.
but he
Agree.
gave you
Yeah.
7, 8, and
And
9.
9,
But
yeah.
you don't understand that, because now
Yes.
you get frustrated with him. He's trying to go past 6. He don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So you got expectations on him, which is hard for you to understand. But if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't understand his strength and his weaknesses, because I'm here, my sole purpose, when you talk about the prison system,
Yes.
the majority of them being in there is because they've done something stupid trying to portray something for a woman.
Yeah.
It's because either they selling drugs because they're trying to get money. It's going to be something because I'm trying to impress. I'm trying to do this.
Right.
Somebody
Right.
spoke to my woman. I got to be a man in front of my woman.
Yeah.
A man. I guarantee you the majority of them in there having something to do with them trying to stick their chest out and trying to prove that they're a man.
Yeah.
So when women don't understand their power,
Yeah.
and to try to say, like, through the brokenness, there's so
Yes.
much junk in the trunk.
Yes.
And then you try to say, okay, well, he's on drugs. He's an alcoholic. He won't get up off the couch. Well, because you don't understand his brokenness, because that's not how God intended him to be.
Right.
So he was made to be a provider. So now there's so much brokenness, and you don't understand, as hard as it is, if you don't know how to say to him through prayer and some more prayer, as much as you have to try to hold his hand, as
Yeah.
angry and upset as you are, if you don't say to him, honey, you my man, I know you can do this. I'm with you because you are a man. Holding his hand in prayer. Even if you're not praying with him, let him see you pray. Let him
Yes.
hear you pray.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yes.
And the list goes on in the sense of a spiritual battle.
Right.
But he also, you are the one that can lift him up. But you're too busy, you no good, He's already down. You got your foot at his throat, and I know it's hard. And you probably should have your foot on his throat. But the only way you have the power to get him off that couch, you have the power between prayer and God and what He gave you to break that spirit.
Yeah.
But you don't have the patience and to understand
Right.
your power.
Yeah.
That's my conversation that I try to have.
That's a powerful conversation. It's mesmerizing.
Now, the
Yeah.
interesting thing, Dr. Ada, is that with the women that you had worked with, and what did they see their relationship with men, as Charles is saying, as them having the power, or did they see themselves somehow as
Powerless.
as powerless, as victims?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Again, if I can go back to the perception that there's not a lot of men out there, and you feel like because of that, you have to take whatever you can get, sort of thing. And this is not meant to be demeaning to anyone, because we all have value. And sometimes we need to ask ourselves why we with this individual anyway, especially the persons that you spoke about. And we don't ask these questions because I believe that we attract the same reflection of ourselves.
Yeah.
So show me who you love, and I'll show you yourself.
You have
Okay.
no idea
So
how many
you
times I've asked that question.
Yes,
Why
yes.
did you marry him?
Yes.
Or why were you in love with him?
Right.
I've
right.
asked that. Why did you marry him? Why
Yeah.
did you,
Yeah.
and I don't want to take away from your conversation, but
no.
so many times you're having these conversations,
Yes.
and because when the women start doing the men bashing, and when they start talking about the ex or who they dating and all this madness is going on, and I always say, now he didn't just wake up with that yesterday. That's who he was when you met him.
Exactly. Yes.
He didn't just all of a sudden boom. And I said
right.
there was signs he showed you.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
just ignored them
Exactly.
because part of your whatever that is, you're gonna fix him.
Yes.
And if
yes.
you love him a little bit more, he gonna be a little bit more righteous.
Right.
And all
Right.
and so you go through all these things of saying, you have to look at yourself.
Right.
Because there's so many times you talk with whether it's a guy or a girl, male or female, and so you say to them, well, you need to get out of this situation. Well, yeah, you out of this situation, but you're going to go attract another one just like him.
Just like him.
Because you're not
Absolutely.
working on you
'Cause
and
you haven't
understanding what the
fixed
problem
your
is.
issues.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that's
Right.
one of the biggest things is that you are attracted to that, and you have to ask yourself why.
I agree.
And that's what I meant. Remember when I tell you about when we had Miss Gail?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And when I said what I said, that sister set up. Like,
She got her spine right
oh,
there,
yeah.
Jay, on that one.
because
Okay.
I said, she was talking about abuse. And
Okay.
we were talking about the same thing because
Sure.
I said I have the right to be a knucklehead, or I have the right to be who I want to be.
Yes.
I have the right. If I want to be a jackleg, I can be a jack. I have all the right to be the biggest person in the sense of
That's correct.
just who I am. You got to ask yourself why you with me,
That's
because I
right.
have the right to be me. So when I said I have the right to be the biggest jerk, she set up like, wait a minute. Now, what? So what I was trying to
Yeah.
say was, you can't put it on. You have to put it on yourself, because there's a lot of people out there. Why you with me?
That's right. Yeah. And probably the best thing would be just not be in a relationship.
Yeah.
But
But-
there, I'm sorry.
But that's it's. I think you start to understand that when you get older.
Right. Right.
But because we, by nature, we just doing what nature has us
Right.
to do, because we're supposed to be able to be with somebody, and we hunger for that, we yearn for that by nature,
Yeah.
and it takes a time, and it's so funny because as I've gotten older, some of my friends, when they say, I didn't know it was so good to be by yourself. I didn't, oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
They've
Okay.
never experienced
It's a
it
wonderful
before.
thing.
Right. It
You know?
is.
You
Yeah.
know?
It is.
You know?
Absolutely.
in talking about the women in prison, when I was working with Sherry Grace with Mothers of Incarcerated Sons, when we would go to Coleman Prison, and some of the women would come out and talk to talk with Pastor Murray, Stan Murray, Officer Murray, who he's the pastor. Murray,
okay.
and we brought him over to Oak Ridge High School. So what they did was they brought all the females at the school into the gym. Now, when the girls were walking in, they saw the inmates because they was in their uniforms and everything, and they was walking by. They was kind of laughing at them and poking at them, and there was like maybe 6 or 7 of them. And they got them in there, filled up the gym. And by the time those ladies finished talking, those girls had tears in their eyes. They was clapping for them because they had anywhere from 20-some years old to a grandmother in that prison talking about how they got there. And they was talking about their relationships. And from my boyfriend, they was talking about the ones who was HIV positive and getting them every morning having to go get their pills. And say, you see, you look at me, I don't look like I have HIV, and so on, and telling their stories of how I came to prison and trying to be in a relationship, trying to follow this guy, believing he loved me, and so on and so forth. But by the time they finished telling their story, they were all clapping and cheering for him and everything else.
I think overall there's no pointing fingers here, but society in general, we fail. We fail our young women and young men at the time that they need to be learning skills on how to be in a relationship. We really have. There's not a whole lot in place.
No.
Where does one get information from? Music, TV, movies, my friends, my peers. This is not really good information. My niece told me one time, I had the pleasure of taking custody of my niece. I have all sons.
How old? You got to tell us how old, though.
At the time, she was 12.
Oh,
okay. Boy. But it got interesting because she lived with me for 7 years.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my sister who adopted her died, and she came to live with me, and I had sons. I was sharing some information with her about the study because I was doing the study at the time too.
Oh, okay.
My niece told me that if you weren't in a relationship, you would just be considered gay. And that just blew my mind.
This is at 12?
Not at 12. I would
okay.
say she's probably about 15 or 16 by now.
15 or 16.
Right.
Okay.
But this was her thinking. And she didn't tell me directly. She told someone else who told me because they didn't believe her either. But she had to get that perhaps from her peers. And so she had wrong information. She really did. I can tell you conversations we had that I know now really help because now she's starting to sound like me. She's 20.
Okay.
She's 22 now.
Okay.
And she sounds like a mini me.
Okay.
One is, Nicole, a male is not going to treat you any better than you treat yourself. So learn to love yourself first. And that might be the missing thing in the equation because as women, we are such caretakers. It's got to be it's got to be some DNA related to being a caretaker, right? Because we're so accommodating. Everybody else come first except us. We're gonna make sure you happy and you get
Not
what
all
your
women,
needs
no,
are.
no,
Well,
no,
not all women. Okay, all right.
No,
okay. Generally
I'm just messing
speaking,
with you. I'm just messing with you.
yeah, you better be messing with
me. I'm just no, but wait a minute now. Oh, see, I told you, I got some stories. I don't want to break you. I'm in a a relationship. My
Okay.
back goes out. They're having some
Right.
problems
Right.
with, with my girlfriend.
Right.
I'm trying to put on my shoes. That sister stepped over me and kept going. But anyway, go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
So, since we're so busy taking care of others, we really don't take care of ourselves 1st. We really don't. And that was something else that was noted in the study, that a lot of the women would sacrifice their own health care to take care of their children. And even being HIV positive, some of them would not continue taking their medications and whatnot, because they would be so distracted about being the caretakers. Because let's face it,
Right. Yeah.
about 50% head of households for African American families are women. So we have a burden from the get-go. We really do.
Right.
So we become just people pleasers because we feel that that's the way that we're supposed to do it. My mother did it, my grandmother did it, and it's a cycle that continues for a long time. And we got to be mindful now to break that cycle and start taking care of ourselves and start taking back that power that you were speaking of, because we do have power. One of the power is in relationship. I should dictate as much as my male partner when it's time for us to initiate sex. But we don't do this. We don't. If this is my body, shouldn't I have something to say about it? God, I think God issued it to me, didn't he? Well, first to my parents. But we don't.
Yeah.
We don't ask questions. We don't really get to know a person. We accept people as they are, and you're right. We want to change them. We want to make them better because I'm a better person, and he just hadn't had me yet. So I know after me, he's going to be straight.
That's part of where that narcissism may come into play. One of the things that I'm wondering, Dr. Ada, is that as Charles talks about the sister that stepped over, I'm wondering if part of that is the sister who, in reaction to being a caretaker and her earlier experiences, perhaps being used and abused, that gets to the point and says, well, listen, I ain't taking care of nothing or nobody, and goes in the opposite direction, and instead of being able to utilize those experiences to heal from it. In my clinical practice, often I'll see women who are still wounded by those earlier relationships. And when someone like a Charles comes by, who is
like a child,
who is willing and ready to, respect them. They're saying, well, listen, this is going to pay, for
all the other ones that didn't treat me so well. Well, hurt people, right?
Okay, exactly.
How can you heal from something that you're not aware that you need to heal from in the first place?
That's one of the biggest things,
He was the problem. He was just another one of them. And even if they knew they had a different man and he was a better man, there's something that I've seen for many years in my working in the mental health field is self-sabotaging. The feeling is, I don't deserve it, so I'm going to do something to destroy this. I'm going to push him away because I don't deserve this good man. And self-sabotaging is not conscious. It's not conscious. It's something that goes on in the subconscious, more or less, that something feels different. So being that it's different, it's not for me. I'm going to push it away. One of the ladies in the study said she liked bad men. She said, I like the bad boys. She said, I was the kind that like bad boys. And even though this is one individual, but what she said is interesting, because if that's all you know and you got used to being with the bad boys because they were the thugs and they like to go out and steal and rob and do whatever.
And they had the bling, so-called.
Yes, exactly. it didn't matter how they treat me because I always gave me things. Again, because I do not have a strong sense of self. My whole being is defined by this relationship, and that was constant in the group.
In the group.
Yes, it was.
So again, when Charles comes by to this sister that is used to hanging out with the bad boys, she's
he gonna get it. I'm sorry. We just have to keep you in prayer. Just let me know.
It's funny. Now that wasn't the personality of that person that stepped over me. But I can share with you this right here. One of the persons that I wanted to talk about that being a narcissist.
Right.
When I met her, she was 38 years old. Okay. I became the gay guy. Because I wouldn't sleep with her. Now she's 38 years old.
Okay.
So her friends, she's calling me up and said, my friends are like messing with me, talking about why I keep talking to the gay guy.
Okay.
You know.
See?
Yeah.
You know, so at 38,
Right.
you know, it's it's still that mindset. You know?
So not even just 15 or 16,
Right.
but 38.
Yeah,
Right.
Is thinking the same way.
yeah,
Right,
that's
right,
sad. It
right.
really is that relationships are still defined by a sexual relationship, and that's sad. That was evident too within the study. In fact, one of the study participants actually said, at today's dating, it means having sex. If you know anybody dating, they having sex. That's interesting. It really shouldn't be that way. But why have we allowed such an intimate, in my view, sacred act to be so recreational and so expected? When many times, again, you not only don't know the person, as you said, you don't know me, you don't know yourself.
Right. But we're in America. You know, we're in America.
Yeah, right.
And being in America,
Right.
you know, that's just who we are in the sense of the movies, the music.
Exactly. Yeah.
This and when you were talking about that, is because now that I think about, and I've heard people of my generation say this, would hate to be coming up now. You know,
Yeah,
because
right.
it's just so different.
Right,
It's
right.
just a completely different world, and
Right.
and I work a lot with youth.
Yes.
And it's not too often that they really, stun me, but once in a while you'd be like, whoa. But it's just, you just see so much disrespect now, and they're so naive.
Yeah.
They're gifted, they're smart, but they're just missing something. Well, we talk, we talked about how we have failed this generation as adults.
Yes, we have.
We have failed them.
Right.
Because they're just missing it, And
they
I worked
Yeah.
with someone that I was very close to who was a school teacher. And she said this about maybe 8-9 years ago. And she just called me up on the phone. She was up in New York. She said, Charles, I just given up on him. I'm not gonna say what she said, but she's and putting it nicely.
Yeah,
She just said,
right.
"Hell with him. I just can't take him no more." And
Yeah.
she's she grew up in the school system,
Right.
and she just, Charles, I just throw my hands up. They're just too disrespectful. They just don't understand.
Right.
Right. But
Yeah, we could talk all day about how different things are and how misguided the youth are, but they have a right to be. Again, if we look at the information that they're getting, and they're so susceptible to going with status quo and being part of that. And my niece she wanted to be part instead of her being an individual. And that again just tells me you don't have a strong sense of self. Personally, if you know who you are, then nobody can talk you into doing something that may be harmful to you. It's just like that,
I can pat myself on the back just because I can.
Yeah.
But well, I'm saying because when I was growing up, I was around. Well, I can say it. Everybody smoked marijuana. I was in the car. They were smoking marijuana. Went to the house, driving the car. And even I had the girlfriend that smoked marijuana. But it never fazed me to do it. It didn't. I never even came close. It didn't.
Right.
it didn't faze me. It wasn't.
Right.
It's something that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And so people looked at me like I was crazy.
So why didn't you want to do what your peers were doing? What made you go against the grain, so to speak?
To me, I wasn't going against the grain.
Oh,
to
okay.
me, I was I just knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I
Okay.
didn't care. As a matter of fact, the half of me was not doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Because, well, to be honest, I was an athlete.
Okay. Good.
And being an athlete, I didn't want to give you that advantage.
Right.
And
Okay.
plus, I didn't want to disappoint my grandmother.
Yes.
So it just didn't, it didn't faze me.
Okay.
I mean, I would be in the car and they would give it to me and I would pass it on. Then they'd get mad at me because I'm rolling the window down.
Okay.
But it never even came close to, I want to do this.
Okay.
And everybody was
Yeah.
doing it.
Because you had a strong sense of self. You know who you are. And doing that was against who you had become to be. And here again, our children, unfortunately, and I say our because I take ownership, for all children have no sense of self. They really don't. And the role models, too, that they follow. In my dissertation, I talked about Lakita Garth. Most people have never heard of her. She is the former Miss California, 1996. She was a virgin when she got married. She wrote a book, and the book probably wasn't a bestseller. I just discovered it doing my research.
Oh, okay.
But she was, and she is a motivational speaker. She goes to school, and I remember one of the videos that I looked at on YouTube, she would ask the question, how old do you have to be before you get a driver's license, to her teenagers?
Right.
And she'll get an answer depending on the state she was speaking in. Well, how old do you have to be before you can drink? And she'll get an answer. And how old do you have to be before you can smoke or buy cigarettes? And then she'll hit him with the big one. How old do you have to be before you have sex? And she would get all kind of answers. 14, 15. Her point was, we are so disjointed in society about how we view the initiation of sex in a relationship. I told my niece she couldn't date to 18. She thought I was out of my mind. I think that's when I got that response. And I backed it up with what I knew. I said, because you don't know yourself.
Right.
And well, I won't explain what I went through with that.
Well,
but,
that's so important because there are some parents, as we talk about how we may not have stepped up, there are many parents who would have said, well, I guess, the other kids are doing that.
Exactly. Just do what everybody else is doing.
Right? And I don't want my daughter or son. Well, say a dad would say, listen, you're not going to have no boy until I'm in my grave with some fathers. But the sense is that many, again, going along with the flow.
Yes.
That instead of being self-determining, just as you were saying, that their peers, TV, the hype that's out there define their sense of self.
Exactly.
And so not only do they not value themselves, but the interesting things Charles mentioned in a side note, doing something for his grandmother, having expectations.
Yes.
And having someone who expects something of you. And what you were saying about talking with your niece, that she probably railed against you and just probably thought you were just crazy and
Tina know what she's talking about.
Right, exactly.
I wasn't even old school. I was archaic. Ancient.
But something took.
Yes, it did.
Despite that. And so now, as you said, she's sounding like a mini-me.
Right, right. When I talk to her, yes, absolutely.
So one of the things that I've said to parents in my practice is that don't try to be, the parent, your children's friend or
No.
buddy or whatever.
Yes.
You are a parent and expect
I agree.
not to be liked at some point. Because if you say what the reality is, the reality, your reality, what you know in their experience,
Right.
is going to be different from what these young people know and experience.
Absolutely.
And it's the old story about the child thinking that his father was just the dumbest thing at 18, but coming back and saying to his father at 24, I didn't know you were a genius. Okay?
Exactly. That's right.
So sometimes, not being arbitrary, but using, your discernment, your experience,
Yes.
and what you've gone through to pass that on gets to be so important.
Yes. Right. That's true.
And Dr. Ada, we have just merely touched
Merely touched.
the subject that
Oh.
we had you come on.
Yes,
But I'm
yeah.
looking at my watch,
Oh,
and that
look
it
at
says,
it.
8 o'clock.
Yes.
But I'd
Yeah.
like to, before we close out,
Sure. Absolutely.
just have you, if you were to say something to the young people, no, to women in general,
Yeah.
about that you feel would be the one thing that you would want them to know, what would that be?
I'm 100% sure I would have to say, be true to yourself first. Validate your worth. Do not do it externally. Do not expect someone to validate your worth, and certainly someone that would validate it on external things like how you look, your shape, or whatever. Because it's really not about that. It really is. And in the end, it's really about those non-tangible things that really make the difference in relationships and even in our individual selves. It's about who we are individually. Look for things that more or less are integrity based, not so much the things that people can do for you or give you. Have the wherewithal to be your own person. And because no one can live my life for me, and they probably won't want to anyway. And I always tell my clients, I say, you are so precious because you only one person. There's only one. And God made sure of that because there are no duplicate fingerprints. So if that being said, find your purpose. Find out who you really are and live that purpose. Because that can mean the difference between you living with you or you living a life that you just don't want to live. In other words, in misery. Yeah. That's the key to a successful life. And also relates to how well you live at that. When you have a strong sense of who you are, you don't have a need to engage in risky behaviors to prove anything to anybody. Because I'm okay with who I am because I'm it.
Okay.
There are no duplicates of me at all. And I have a purpose and I know what that purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is, it's not hard to find it. Just think about the things that you love to do. What gives you excitement? What gets that dopamine, we call that feel-good neurotransmitter, going in you? Because that has a lot to do with your purpose and what you are here to do in life. And that's what I would say.
That is couldn't have been said any better. And so we're going to have to close out now.
Oh, shucks.
And the time just has seemed to have flown.
Yes, it
But
did.
I want to say again, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
with us.
I am
Dr.
so
Ada.
happy. And I want to come back.
Well, we will definitely have you coming back.
Okay.
And I want to say to family, as Dr. Ada says, that find your purpose, and go ahead and carry it out. And with that, and closing out, I'd like to say, family, the journey is from you to me and from me to you so that we can reach a higher level. Good night, and we'll hopefully see you next week. Bye-bye.